We hit record. We're good. We're good.
Insert musical cue here. Hello, everybody. My name is Michelle Perez. I'm joined with my friend Jake, my friend Ruben, and Eliza. Just in the shortest way I can have this discussion because it came up with Jake and Ruben. Gauger or Gauger?
It's Gauger.
Son of a bitch. For fucking years, I've been a fool saying
It's fine.
Gauger.
Yeah.
One that gauges.
I knew it.
No, that's such a common mispronunciation that my brother, who is an opera singer, and he has to go to auditions and shit where people are always saying his name, he just changed it. He's like, yeah, it's Gauger now. You're right.
Good job.
You got me. Oh, wow. Well, you learn something new every day. Eliza Gauger. Tears streaming down my face. Welcome to Workinonit. We are a podcast that's kind of focusing on the DIY experience and, I guess, independent creation across many forms as you see it out in the world and in the immediate interim, the digital space. Our focus is kind of about musicians, writers, people in comics, art, and many other forms of expression. And I think I kind of want to go through everyone's relation to this. Jake, what are you working?
Hello. All right. Well, my name's Jake. I've been on the internet for quite a long time. That's how I know Michelle and everyone else in this podcast. I know it's a bad place to be. Previously, as far as exposure to DIY culture, most of mine has been through liking a lot of underground music and being involved therein. I've written for local music zines and just been a guy at a lot of shows of bands you've probably never heard of that don't make any money from the work that they do. As far as sustenance goes, they are more in it for the culture. All of them have side jobs and stuff. Is primarily how I was introduced to the idea of people just making art that they want to on their own terms, despite whatever the world might have to say about that. And other than that, I like a lot of, I guess, just comic books and other things that fall under the indie realm outside of like those big two publishers.
Mm-hmm. You've done some TV and whatnot as well. Yes,
but none of that, I should note, has been independent. All of the work I've done in television has been for large companies.
That's fair, but I guess it's a living. I think everyone
and you work with independent people in that industry as well.
Seem to have like some sort of side gig or thing that kind of propels them moving forward. Eliza, you have a repertoire of many things you have done over the years.
Yeah, I'm trying to like cut it down to a CV sized. Let's see. Well, my dad is a science fiction novelist and cartoonist, so I got into it really early, which I think kids should. I mean, we used to like send kids into apprenticeships when they were 9, 10 years old, and that's really when you want to start doing that stuff professionally. So I started selling my work when I was 12. And I've just I've been lucky. I've had a lot of support, and that's actually one of the key aspects of DIY culture is like you need material support or you're fucked, and you can either get it yourself or someone can give it to you. So, yeah, like when I was in 5th grade, I sold hundreds of dollars worth of handmade jewelry so that I could go on the science trip. And that was kind of like the big one where it started. And I turned that into a club of a bunch of other little girls, and we got in the newspaper. And then after the science trip, we started doing like environmental fundraising and stuff. And, yeah, I don't know. I've done a little bit of everything. I think my focus is probably in, fine art and illustration, but I've also been a freelance writer. I worked for Kotaku, Destructoid, Wired, I ran my own blog for a while. It was just like a culture blog called Ectoplasmosis. There might even be some people who used to read that.
I'll stop you right there. Was it like, yeah, it was ectoplasmosis. I saw like a handle or something like toxoplasm or something.
Mm-hmm.
Or yeah. And I believe you've also done like fashion. You've done it all, really.
Yeah, I've I don't know, the whole family's kind of weirdos, and just, I got a lot of support for that early. I did costume design. I was talking about in the Discord how you guys were talking about like DIY music and like goth guar and like really specific niche bands. I was in one of those for years. So yeah, I mean, I don't want to go through the whole list, but I'm one of those people where sometimes during conversations with other people who have been on the internet a long time, I'll just mention something and the people will be like, "Oh shit, you did that? Holy shit." Which is a really good feeling. So that's kind of why I keep coming back to it.
Yeah. The sense of found but also created community, I think, keeps a lot of people in it, despite, I think, a lot of either hardships or precarity or like infighting, like all that dog shit. But people like being able to do things on their own terms. Which brings me to Ruben. Ruben, what are you into? What do you do, my guy?
I woke up kind of late today. My sleeping schedule's not been great. I finished wedging my axe today. I got like a nice, like 30-inch oak handle on there. I found out the best wood for it, but there's not like a lot of nice wood out here. Other than that, for DIY stuff, I don't sell shit. It's really just for myself to enjoy outside of woodworking and making little utility things for the house, a little table here or there, or something for the cat. I just do some photography for the hell of it.
Nice with it.
I'm in a niche board gaming a bit. I've moved into Mahjong and Go in recent years, as in recent year.
He's underselling it. He won't shut the fuck up about Go. It's incredible.
Well, more to the DIY point, Ruben, didn't you design games by yourself for a while?
Oh, right. Yeah, I also designed board games for about like 5 to 7 years, either pen and paper or board game. Didn't really move far enough to try and like publish anything or get too far into public playtesting. But that might just be just for lack of time. Just I usually get busy at some point and then put it all down, and then it just kind of sits there. It's just getting dust.
So Ruben is kind of like different among a lot of my friends, where a lot of us will kind of externalize it. He'll like internalize it, and he'll like have a utility form for everything like he does in his life. The wood and stuff he works on, he'll incorporate that into his day-to-day life. And I think it's kind of why I wanted you involved. Everyone I've known, Liza, I think I've known you about 5 or 6 years, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
Known Ruben and Jake for about 10 years. And I was thinking, now, especially since we're all kind of basically left to our own devices in a very literal way, a lot of people have a lot of anxieties or this or that. And a big question people ask themselves nowadays is like, how do I change this or that big overarching thing? And for me, my work, I think, has just been directly related to precarity and all of the problems. But for me, I did comics. I did DIY comics with Remy Boydell. I had a portfolio of basically game criticism blogging I had done in the past, medium difficulty, 5 out of 10 mag. I moved on to music writing for the Rainbow Hub, and basically I wanted to strike out and do my own thing, and I co-created The Pervert with Remy Boydell and a subsequent zine. And we got quite a few interviews. We were doing stuff for Huffington Post and all this or that. It was a pretty good time. And for the most part, my discovery of a lot of DIY people is seeing how many shared interests we had and how divergent they were. And I feel like people seem to have more sense of stake and love in what they have when they are tied innately to it. A new phenomena, however, that I think is like the new preeminent sort of DIY creator that probably defines this modern era. I don't know if you've heard of this website. It is called YouTube. So
yeah, Lazy Sunday, right?
Yeah, Lazy Sunday. If you like jokes about Lord of the Rings or Narnia, or if you are into video games and you want to see individual fatalities done to each Mortal Kombat character by each other individual Mortal Kombat character, or if you want to.
Okay, yeah, that's a real use of YouTube. I just want to point out that's utilitarian. Someone's actually going in and editing those together, and that person's doing a public service.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to start a white supremacist death cult, it's YouTube. Bad. It's a website. You can use it.
Don't forget, you can also get every Memorex logo from every version of the video VHS cassettes they made on YouTube. That's a very good one.
If you want to pirate audiobooks, it's YouTube. You can do it. And YouTube has sort of created a new sort of creative where they kind of do what was referred to as convergence marketing, where it's not one thing, it's like 7 fucking things. A YouTube creator basically is in charge of their own engagement, advertisement, and all of these facets of their income stream.
Writing, filming, editing, usually.
Writing, filming, editing, and even their cult of personality is like this very cultivated, curated, manicured, freakish fucking thing that is beyond my scope of understanding. The YouTubers I personally look at are like video game modders. There's like one guy I maybe consistently look at. His name is Juicehead. He is this very fucking boring Fallout 4 modder who always ends his videos with like a psychology fact.
This guy sounds great.
He's great. Jake, if you want to add in a clip, I'll find of this guy. He's very nasally, but he's like, he goes out of his way to be like pleasant. He will not arouse any feelings, good or bad, in you.
I like YouTubers like that.
He is like a sandalwood scented YouTuber. You're not going to feel too strongly. And Ruben in particular has one area of expertise. When Jake and I were speaking to him one day, that I thought we could just throw a whole episode at this as our sort of inaugural opening firing shot into the in no way oversaturated podcasting market space. And hit us up, man. Who the fuck is Jenna Marbles?
Wait, I just need to contextualize one thing. I'm sorry, Ruben.
Yeah.
The reason that I ever think of Ruben as a YouTube expert is because we are frequently in a Discord channel together. And the constant presence of Ruben is marked by the background of YouTube videos going on in his house.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
His
partner is always watching YouTube. Sometimes
that is the most exposure to YouTube that I get personally.
Yeah, if you want to listen to some true crime mukbang, I got some recommendations for you. But that's not why we're here today.
Oh my god.
Anyways, go on, Ruben.
Today we're talking about Jenna Marbles, YouTube poster child, darling, and now retired vlogger.
That's pretty notable.
Moray
that's not that old.
Is now age 34, residing out of California near LA or something. That doesn't matter. Her career took off in 2010 with a video titled "How to Trick People into Thinking You're Good Looking." She got 5.5 million views in the first week.
It was a really good video.
that leaves Miss Marbles with 20 million subscribers on her now inactive channel for 3 months now. Just some notable things. I like to just get a little bit of information, just general background, or like accomplishes the like. I just have a loose list here. Miss Marbles was the first social media star, so just like influencer type, non-Hollywood figure, to have a wax figure displayed at Madame Tussauds out of New York City.
Love it.
She has a video of her flying, going with the team, getting scanned and all that. She did like a selfie pose so that you can like get in under her arm and take a fun picture with her statue, which is really cool also to see that teamwork. I recommend it just to see how those people make a fun wax. She's currently living outside of Monaco with her 4 dogs, Kermit, Bunny, Peach, and Marbles, which a majority of her content revolve around these 4 great dogs. Bunny being a new adopted big ass fucking greyhound. I got pictures out here in the chat, or you can go to the Jenna Marbles fan wiki if you just want to have gross access to this information. Mr. Marbles being her first dog that was with her when her career started in 2010. This old fucking dog is so old now. This tiny little chihuahua. God. It's the oldest dog you've ever seen. Wait, he doesn't know where he is half the time. Sure.
I'm trying to think here. Okay. Dog 1, tiny. The dog Bunny is the big one?
Bunny's huge. Massive.
The greyhounds are massive.
Big.
They're really big.
Long dogs.
And then we have Kermit and Peach, who are Italian greyhounds, and those are still toy size, medium, bigger than Marbles. Marbles is still like almost palm sized. This fucking decrepit old piece of shit dog. Marbles is great because he was so old when Julia Solomita got into Jenna Marbles' life in 2013. About we'll get to him in a second. Her partner, Julian Solomita.
Oh, okay.
Marbles is pretty fucking old chihuahua. About 2015, 2016. Although Marbles likes Julian, Marbles is now at a age where he forgets that he likes Julian and will just sit there growling at him. And then if you pick him up and pet him, he's like, "Oh, this is nice." And as soon as you set him down, is fucking angry ass chihuahua barking in your face. He's great. I love Marbles.
Aww.
A real one. Kermit and Peach are just fucking little shitheads, though. There are pictures up in the chat there. Julian Solomita was her partner. They started on YouTube in 2013. He made some small appearances, mainly did camera operation for her. He has his own channel and Twitch stream. He's significant because once they were together, they were a very lovey-dovey, fun couple on YouTube, except they would never acknowledge their relationship, just as a general bit for the chat on streams and everything. They will only ever say they're friends and then will not kiss on video. And if anyone says, "When are you guys going to get married?" all of the hardcore Jenna heads will comment, "They're just friends," and use the shit out of everyone.
That is actually pretty funny. Yeah.
Very good technique.
2015, Miss Marbles became a vegan. That's only of note because it would change all of their Jenna and Julian kitchen videos to being about vegan recipes and the like, and Julian's forthcoming gluten intolerance, and then I remember. I'm really fucking tired, y'all.
Don't be.
I had some coffee.
You're going through all the facts. I'm going to stop you just for a second. So, upcoming gluten intolerance, are there like eras, like the pre-gluten era?
We have a decade of
I mean, that's I am, as a gluten intolerant person, I can tell you that era is where you're like eating cake and then feeling like absolute shit and you don't know why, and then you eat more cake because you're hungry, because your body is just not accepting nutrients anymore, so you're starving and you're just eating toast. And yeah, it's hell basically. And then you find out that you can't eat gluten, and then you can't like eat most food anymore. And I can't imagine what it would be like to be both a vegan and not be able to eat gluten. Like, that's it. You can't eat anything anymore.
It's quite a limiting diet, yeah.
You can go outside and eat things you find on the ground.
You can eat stuff from a tree.
Yeah.
Yeah, we only found this out recently from our partner Fran, because it was just really weird that she get diarrhea 90% of the time eating anything. We couldn't figure out what the fuck it was.
Yeah, you're allergic to food, idiot. That was how I felt when I figured it out. I'm like, oh, if I don't eat most food, I'm fine. Yeah, it's gluten.
Let's see. So in terms of what's Jenna doing right now, of course, she retired. Mainly, I'm bringing her up to get to other people. But she stepped down from the platform about 3 months ago. She issued a formal message saying she's pretty much done. She's not going to come back. She doesn't believe she ever will. And she's also taking steps that look like she's done for good, which is good for her. Live a life. You're successful.
She had a little bit of a meltdown, right? Like she had kind of a farewell video and sort of self-canceled a little bit because of what was it? It was a video she did a few years ago, right? She felt bad about it.
Yeah, she was essentially saying some of her previous videos fell into the realm of brown facing. Essentially, she had a good and just like some stereotypical things like slut shaming things.
Mm-hmm.
There was some like Asian stereotypes thrown around. The main thing was she worked at a tanning salon, so she always was running a spray tan, and she would just do dumb shit. She was running like a deep like brown spray tan, and then did a Nicki Minaj video, and then kind of you put together later that maybe he had this spray tan for months though before that. So I'm not trying to. All news articles currently though sell it as due to blackface backlash. But she brought it up to say as a point, this stuff's not great. I wish it didn't happen like that. Yeah. I didn't know, contextually it makes sense, but most news outlets will right now report to bop.
All right, Ruben.
Canceled. Another one bites the dust.
Yeah, which I don't think it's fair, really.
Yeah, a lot of people were not about that for her.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Ruben is the resident brownest person here. So the tan itself, was it like tan or was it like Al Pacino and Scarface? Like the range is a spectrum.
Do you know what a girl that's doing the Gyaru look looks like?
Oh yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah. One of the
that deep.
The Japanese
pretty fucking deep. We're past orange. There's like a mount of brown, kind of cacao powder-ish color.
Mm-hmm. So you're not Al Pacino at that point. You're Willem Dafoe in Once Upon a Time in Mexico. God damn.
Well, I mean, not to defend it, but I mean, one of the reasons I know anything about Jenna Marbles is because I was also a go-go dancer. And she was like a professional go-go dancer at a big club for a while, right? Wasn't that her main job when she did her first? Yeah.
That was job back in 2010 for a few years.
The main thing about the how to trick people into thinking that you're attractive video is lots and lots and lots of bronzer. And the thing about that is that it's like pantyhose for your entire body. It hides cellulite, which is a big deal for go-go dancers. And because every single AFAB person has some cellulite somewhere. It doesn't matter if they weigh 100 pounds. But with go-go dancing, you really have to watch that shit. And it's actually hard to wear pantyhose when you're dancing for a lot of reasons I won't get into. So there's this whole culture with stripping and go-go dancing and all that stuff is that even the white girls, you want to be as tan as possible because it makes you look a lot thinner due to the way that light bounces off you. Again, pantyhose. And it also hides cellulite and varicose veins. Bruises is a big one because you get hella bruised when you are stripping or go-go dancing because you're always on your knees or whatever. So yeah, I mean, that's why it's that whole culture.
Comes with the territory.
Mm-hmm.
It was just unfortunate crossroads is kind of what it looks like for anyone that was in the know. But
yeah.
Any news headline right now is I looked up any like 10 articles written at the time, and that's how everyone wants to sell it. So
I mean, yeah, I would say then, yeah, that's much different as opposed to say like leaning into it. I'm trying to think of this one. She had beefed with me at some point or another in the bygone Twitter era. Blair White, an enemy of the show. Blair White,
our first official enemy of the show.
Yeah, the great Satan, basically sort of like a Roy Cohn style trans, where she kind of leaned into wearing like a black facial mask, and then you'd take the next logical mimetic step, and it's like canceled for doing blackface,
right?
And do the weird anti-soy face YouTube pick or whatever. And I think there's a difference between, leaning into the thing versus say, this is like sort of anecdotal. This is not like a thing she deliberately aimed for and had a specific aim to be like incendiary or whatever.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not that I don't want to be unsympathetic or whatever. I think in terms of large scale problems, I think a self-cancellation works one of two ways now in modern society. As a personal observation, I see it in media, particularly a specific type of journalist that tries to move in and out of like culture war crap. You self-cancel if you basically want to make twice the money you made in the past. So you want to be like a 5-figure guy, hopefully moving to a 6-figure guy with an installed base. With YouTubers, the actual amount of exposure they get is massive. I don't think she would do like a bad faith thing. I've watched some of her stuff. She seems very personable. My first time actually hearing about her was not like via YouTube. She had like a radio show on XM. I don't know if she still does it, where she's like on the XM pop top 40 chart sort of thing. And she would just sort of do her YouTuber diction and cadence. Like she sounds much different than the standard BJs that sort of do their thing. And that's how I knew her. But for the most part, it seems fairly inoffensive. Like I don't feel strong in one way or the other.
That's how I feel about all of the, I mean, not all probably, but like all the whatever you want to call first generation of YouTube is fairly inoffensive. And then I don't feel strongly about it one way or another.
I mean, like around the time the cancellation or whatever was happening, Ruben, like what were other YouTubers that were like
this year, by the way?
That was this year.
This year.
Like,
Yeah, it was just in June.
Jesus Christ, right? Like there was like a wave. There was like a death wave happening.
So yeah, there were essentially other people already under the gun. We finally came to the shores to cancel YouTubers with millions of subscribers, and they wanted as much flesh as they could get out of the situation. The most notable ones that I'm aware of that were very on the heels of this would be people that voluntarily canceled themselves as a sort of an attempt at redemption after Jenna Marbles, saying she was so brave for what she did for accidentally brown facing, even though she had a tan from like a job that she had, and you don't think about that probably. And and Shane Dawson, now admitted and not proven in a court of law, but a pedophile, jumped on the street and threw himself under a bus to be like, I'm sure people will let this go if I cancel myself and then do a pseudo retirement and come back in a moment.
Wow.
And his career is not recovered as planned.
This is Shane Dawson of I Didn't Fuck My Cat fame.
Shane Dawson of I Didn't Jizz on My Cat fame. That's correct.
He did like a makeup line with Jeffree Star.
He did makeup line with Jeffree Star. They were big buds. He started doing his weird conspiracy theory documentaries, and then also wanted to do a not even really autobiography. They kind of just fucked around for an hour about Jeffree Star and Jeffree Star's day to day.
It feels like once you start making a conspiracy theory doc, that's when the money's gotten to
you. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, to a point, there's things
as a
where
YouTuber, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, like I think there's casual observance of conspiracies. Like my dad to this day is convinced he's like seen dyed-in-the-wool UFOs, and now that the fucking military has like come out and said, yeah, there's some shit we actually can't explain and would quantify it as such. So it's like, is my dad the asshole, or am I the asshole at this point? It's like, nah, man, they said you were right, so that's on me. But so all right, the Shane Dawson thing, that one seems particularly odious. Did he like specify? You don't have to get into the details of the action, but was it like you know, like a
But there
thing.
were other fan incidents I didn't get it too far into because, again, I'm not a Shane head. The last thing of Shane's I saw was him I think he helped kind of kickstart the Chuck E. Cheese, the pizza is recycled conspiracy theory.
Wow.
Like within a week of hearing about it, or I thought he made it up and then posted it and then made a documentary with Chuck E. Cheese ate pizzas and then made that roll through Instagram and other social media platforms for a couple months. And then almost started a defamation lawsuit as a result, and he had to really try and cover his ass.
Wow. So,
but the action so far was there was an incident with public proclamation. He publicly said something about Willow Smith sexualizing her to some degree or something like that.
Was this the poster incident?
Maybe.
I think it is.
I'm having a rough time remembering.
He held up a poster of Willow Smith in a video and pretended to masturbate to it.
That would sound right. That would sound about right.
All right. Not to writhe around in this, but did he do like the audio joke where he makes like the noise?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't look that far into it.
Immediately on deck with didn't even have to bat an eyelash to produce that sound, Michelle.
Yeah, no. Someone makes that noise. I'm no doctor. I'm no social scientist. I'm no anthropologist. But that person is probably a pedophile. Just you could quote me, but yeah, no, that's fucked. And yeah, there was Shane Dawson. Jeffree Star did some sort of video in like were there columns in a stairway?
Stairway of Mr. Star with columns in a stairway?
Yeah, he was like wearing a robe and he was like, I need to do an address of some sort with all of these rumors.
Oh yeah, I think Jeffree Star was over the barrel for just being a real big racist, and I'm not sure if that had to do with like his breakup or anything like that, and then immediately getting with a black guy on the hill of being I'm not racist, and then doing a lot of weird photos recently of like being the footstool for the token black boyfriend on the heels of not being racist.
It's one way to go for it.
Dear God.
But I mean, Jeffree Star has made some mistakes, and I think you really can't walk back the sort of mistakes Jeffree Star has made, including some Epstein-esque secret orgies situations for millionaires.
I've gotten to this before when we were talking about it. Please talk about that.
It's only mentioned in passing, kind of. Of course, we can't get a lot of information out of it, but Jeffree Star essentially says, in my dumbass mansion, we take everyone's phones at least for every New Year's, probably more often, and have just a massive orgy, and you just restrict all electric communications because it's supposed to be private. But the privacy might be in some gossiping circles because teenagers are probably getting shipped in for this. And this also is crossing with Shane Dawson, best friends with Shane Dawson, teenager orgies, and the pedophilia coming together.
Now, I don't want to be one of those people that traffics in the sort of reactionary shit where this person from that experience or whatever, and then you make that casual association with pedophilia. I think part of the problem, with a lot of this shit is sort of access culture, which is inherent with a lot of media. You get a lot of these guys who basically only form relationships with their specific fandom and just work out of a really small space. And then they are just surrounded by a bunch of impressionable fans. And then it's just a fucking recipe for disaster. Then you mix that with, say, I don't know, a goddamned mansion. And then it just kind of goes in the same cyclical bits of old timey Hollywood and taking advantage of minors and shit like that. It's really wild. Because I think that was a big part of the YouTuber death wave. There's like, as an aside, it's not necessarily related to YouTube, but Jake, you remember Evo?
Oh yeah, wow, that was good lord. Talk about something that's probably not going to come back.
Yeah, Evo
because of an
Smash.
association with essentially pedophilia.
Yeah, I think
these are fighting game tournaments for the listeners. Large Evo previously the largest whatever you want to call it, open bracket, open entry video game event in the world, basically, where all the fighting game players come together to play. One of the primary organizers and co-founders was, essentially accused of being very dubious to some teenage boys in the fighting game scene way back in the day when all of the dudes would act like that, in big quotes. Generational homophobia and such amongst a bunch of dudes hanging out with each other also turned into a guy trying to take advantage of people.
Yeah. I don't want to say that DIY is an inoculant for it. If anything, I think we could see this as the sort of when you get big enough and it becomes corporatized and you are just sort of a gateway for people to come in and you just sort of breathe that rarefied air for too long. I feel like it's almost sort of conducive to mishandling this. And I think it's actually probably good that Jenna Marbles got out of it because I don't think it's like a 1-to-1 value. I don't believe it leads to that, but it's one of the fucking roads there without question.
As someone who really hasn't actually seen probably more than 2 minutes of Jenna Marbles content, one thing that struck me for what Ruben was saying was she seems to have made a lot of the decisions I would make if I was in YouTube, which is to axe out a lot of the personal aspects of it, i.e. not acknowledging her relationship with her co-host or whatever, and then also at a certain point going, hey, there's no reason for me to be here anymore, and dipping out.
It seems like the most graceful exit, and although she's a very nice person, it does seem like she had a troubled exit. There's a decline of sorts you can kind of track just from the decade of data that you have to work with. That
sure, I mean,
she dropped off like any fan meetups. Used to go to you're getting run ragged going to conventions, going to personal meetup events, flying constantly. And just over time, she just stopped doing all of that, stopped traveling locations for vlogs, stopped doing travel vlogs, just everything's getting shot out of her house at a certain point. And then it just kind of sets in that she's just literally the last, I would say at least 3 years of her content, she would probably at least make a joke every month or so of I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I don't know why you all want to watch a 32-year-old make shoes for her dogs. And
they just log
fucking inner sweats, just shooting a 15-minute video, 6 million views, sure. And
I can imagine, honestly,
you could definitely see it dragging on of her doing the most and then doing really well, but that good things come to an end. There's no real end point other than fizzle out over the next 5 years, maybe just getting weird or take an exit and go be a person again.
So to circle back around a little bit, why are we talking about Jenna Marbles? It's interesting on its own for sure, but let's bring it.
Just for YouTube sake, I mainly bring up Jenna Marbles' retirement and just give background on her for being the person that did it right, because it also kind of sets a milestone for as weird as YouTube has been for landscape for the last decade for creators to become stars, but not stars in the typical sense, because Hollywood, there's actually a lot of microaggressions against YouTubers from Hollywood types or former stars.
Oh yeah.
A lot of vlogs you can find people being they just talk hot shit about YouTubers and are really disrespectful and just waiters disrespect you. You want to get a table on a Tuesday night and you just want a fucking burger, and a guy's these fucking YouTubers want to get a table, and you're what the fuck? I'm trying to eat dinner. And
well, it's because the YouTuber has sort of supplanted our idea of the traditional celebrity.
I would say,
it's the created celebrity.
I think of that idea as something that young people have, and something that I have not even latched onto.
Well, yeah, but my nieces well, okay, my one niece who is very YouTube active, I fucking wish to God her parents restricted this shit more. Like, have you seen like kids YouTube like at all?
Yes.
All I know about kids' YouTube is the weird auto-generated videos that sometimes get seeded with people making like Dora the Explorer like trips over and cries for 10 minutes
It's
or
all
like goes to the
horrifying.
dentist. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
terrible.
When I
Like,
said
you know those.
something about this on, I was like on Twitter when when the news story about that stuff went out. I can't remember
Yeah.
what exactly which venue did it, but yeah, that someone covered it and just how fucked up it was. And I posted on Twitter, I'm like, who is letting their child sit in front of a screen unsupervised for 3 hours? And a bunch of parents like talked back to me and was like, well, I can't
wild.
watch them every minute. And I'm like, I mean, my mom worked fucking 50 hours a week. She was a lawyer. I still was not just plopped in front of a screen, not even a TV. Like, if we were watching TV, she would come over and check it out. And that was always the case. And I can't imagine knowing the horrors that lurk, one click away at any part of the internet. I would never, ever, ever let especially not a small child, like a 2 or a 3-year-old. I would not let them on the internet unsupervised. That's fucking crazy. And, the parents being like, oh, well, YouTube Kids is this whole thing and they said it was safe. I'm like, really? You trust fucking YouTube to decide what appropriate programming is for your toddler? Really?
Yeah.
It's amazing to me. I can't imagine.
I really feel like it's this certain slice of the generation that is old enough to have these children, but clearly is not as inundated with online as you or I, let's say, and doesn't have this view. Like, it's wild to me to think that there's a person out there that's in that sort of space of, I know how to use the internet to entertain my children, but I don't think about it that much.
Well, the thing I think of is sort of the lack of supervision, and then I don't think everything's inherently bad, but like the stuff I see that kind of weirds the fuck out of me is, okay, so there are parent and child YouTubers where it's like, that sounds normal as hell. And they're like playing through games, but they're essentially like Newgrounds.com style games where it's like SpongeBob meets like Jigsaw from Saw.
Mhm.
And so it's SpongeBob SquarePants and like violent situations where he's trying to like play through
Some guy
a Saw style game. Or
and like what, a father and son are playing this together is what you're saying?
yeah, and my niece is watching it and I'm like, oh, what's that? And it's like, oh, SpongeBob versus Jigsaw. And I'm like, how's SpongeBob 1 gonna make it out of that? And 2, like how do you have a familiarity with Jigsaw? And I mean, I remember being around 10 or 11 and maybe sneaking in horror movies and stuff, but like my parents were sort of atypical. They were cool with letting me see X amount of violence, but with the caveat that they were like able to explain that it was fantasy.
Exactly.
If I saw tits in the same movie, off the table, cover my eyes. Like The Crow. The Crow is like a great movie, and I saw that as a kid, but like anytime nudity appeared, hand over the eyes. I watched The Matrix very young. I watched a bunch of shit. Blade, that was a great time. My mom got us like pizza and soda and stuff, and we were like all sitting around watching Blade, having a good old time. I'm not sure if there were titties in Blade, but like we were able to clearly divine that this was fantasy, and like that was the ceiling. It wasn't like they were trying to be hyper woke for the time. It was just as opposed to just burying your head in the sand. Right? Yeah,
like, we all know movies are fake.
My parents were trying to like do a basic level of media literacy because they would both be working a lot of hours, so they couldn't just put a V chip in the TV or some shit and call it a day.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to talk to us as opposed to like just like talking about it after the fact.
Oh yeah. Hell, my mom was in the kitchen or something and she heard someone being misogynistic on the TV, she'd yell. She'd be like, bad role model, and we'd be like, thanks, Mom, we got it. She would just like always paying attention.
That owns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not typical, and not all parents have the privilege to be monitoring, but still, like, yeah.
Yeah, and my parents are like by no means college educated people. Well, Ma got her degree a few years ago. We're all very happy for her. Dad didn't even pass high school. Now it had been the foreman of several factories and now does construction.
Nice.
He loves working outside, but like, so very, very blue collar upbringing. So these aren't people that sort of are helicopter parents that kept us in a bubble. They encouraged us to just ride around on bikes and injure ourselves and shit within reason.
That's so necessary. It really is.
Yeah. I was allowed to ride a bike, but as far as media goes, I was very much, my mom tried to put me in a bubble, and my whole existence was kind of like carving my way out of that bubble.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I remember the type of monitoring where a particularly violent sounding episode of Dragon Ball Z caused my mom to go, you know what? You can't watch this anymore. And I was like, what?
See, that's not helpful because you're just going to go seek it out. Yeah, you're going to go get it on your own.
Exactly. Just go next door to my friend's house during Dragon Ball Z time.
Yeah.
It's fine.
So as it relates to YouTubers, like I think of the New York Times article where they're going around showing these videos where like Paw Patrol and shit is piled into a car together, and like they drive into a fucking light pole and the car explodes and they all burn to death inside. And I think of how many times I just see.
I mean, it is Paw Patrol. We are ACAB here, so
that's true.
Yeah, that's true. No. Some of the non-police Paw Patrol members, similarly themed first responding dogs. Like one of them just after the news that this happens, they fucking kill themselves by leaping off of a building. This small dog, this small animated dog, this Newgrounds animated looking ass dog kills themselves. And I'm thinking, I swear to God, my niece had to have watched something like that at least once. She's typed the word Minecraft sex into the YouTube bar once. And I was like, because I'm like stopping myself from saying to a small child, what the fuck are you doing? But I was just like, honey, what is that? No.
Are the balls square?
That feels like a rite of passage for a modern day.
No, they can't put genitalia on there. Like, I don't know how the algorithm works, but like, I think if you have a certain shape that like is recognized as genitalia,
if it was Minecraft, how would you know? You know,
that's true. No, maybe that's wild speculation on my point, but that's the thing. Like, I think of that in any time that she's been doing that, let alone live action stuff.
These are like peppered in amongst genuine children's content too, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
these are like, that's the weird part. It's like someone's out there kind of just being like, "Oh, I'm gonna fuck with people."
Yeah, and I think there needs to be a way to sort of address that. The problem with YouTube versus say traditional television is YouTube has effectively replaced it. Any massive Viacom network like MTV, Comedy Central, even like the networks that they run like the Drag Race program on, they essentially only exist as like rerun channels now. Like all of them. They're rerunning like Married with Children and canceled TV shows just to retain the licensing rights.
Mm-hmm.
YouTube won this war, as did streaming programs like probably 4 years ago. I want to ballpark it at.
Yeah, that's TV now.
Yeah,
that's TV now. So there is too many things being constructed, made, and like there aren't enough people on Earth to consume all of the hours of content on YouTube. So effectively having guardrails on it and exposure, and I don't mean this in censorship terms, I mean this in terms of like the content itself, and then being able to contextualize it. It's fucking day and night. my parents could not have had those conversations with me if I had the amount of time alone I had back then that my nieces and nephews do now. So it's a massive uphill thing. And so a great deal of YouTube is just virulent, mean-spirited dog shit, if not like outright violent incitement or this or that, or just people that just sort of operate like traditional celebrities that do all of the same awful shit they do. And it's this massive upward arc. I don't mean this in the satanic panic sense, but it seems like YouTube has like done nothing in the way of meaningfully addressing that. And I think they could do it with the people that like work at this or create for the site, I guess. And like the people that consume content on the site. There's no pipeline for it because the most I've seen that seems to be like an indicator for what this will be in the future is just like a Facebook alert that I got where the terms of service are changing for Facebook. Let me see if I can find it right here, where it says anytime you open it now, and it keeps trying to do the service reminder. I gotta find it. We're going to change our rules and terms of service that you don't open us up to like legal action and shit now. It feels like Congress and all of those people that do those little show hearings are probably going to clamp down on the big three like Twitter, Facebook, YouTube in terms of a legislative oversight and probably direct oversight, it doesn't seem better, but like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it just falls under this tech bubble, right? Of things that existed as, like essentially projects and whatever startups, if you will, that then very rapidly became essentially like utilities that we use every day, and then also got scooped up by Google. So it's not like YouTube was never going to be prepared for the amount of crap that they actually have to moderate. But good Lord, the logistics of getting through that is, I'm sure, very challenging.
Yeah.
Maybe, but they also just don't give a shit because there's no
there are
no consequences
you're
for what
absolutely
they're
right.
doing.
It's not like there's someone there who's worried about it.
No, they don't give a shit, and they won't until somebody actually introduces consequences.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. If some like memory serves, like YouTube had a mass shooting from like a disgruntled YouTube person, and that wasn't some sort of massive wake up call for them that maybe they're fostering a weird sense of associations. Like,
I don't believe it was tied to demonetization or something similar to that, but it was essentially someone that had work there and their job was in jeopardy because this is a company of 1,000 people and none of the departments talk to each other and no one knows what they're doing.
Sounds like a startup.
They were essentially fucking with their money, and so they came back to put a heater on some people.
I thought her channel was demonetized.
Yeah, I forget if it was the YouTuber or was an employee. It was the YouTuber.
No, it was the YouTuber because she kind of became an kind of like a weird alt-right Joan of Arc. I know Ben Garrison draws her like an unusual amount. Right. And he doesn't even like draw her hot. He just draws her looking like a fucking ghost.
It does it for some people.
Yeah. Ruben, I wanted to ask you in terms of Jenna Marbles' legacy, do you see this as like a model that can be replicated as YouTube exists now? Because you engage with YouTube probably the most out of all of us, as far as I know.
So as a DIY perspective, as one of the top jobs kids want, they probably say streamers now. It probably changed like over the last 2 years, even.
Definitely,
sure, yeah.
But from a lot of kids that say they want to be a career YouTuber at this point, this is definitely a model you cannot replicate by any means. This is very much a lightning in the ball situation where we have all these people. There are just countless people that have just careers, momentum you couldn't wish to have in 1,000 years, that they have captive audiences of several million people, and they could do anything they want at this point, and it doesn't fucking matter. Just several million people will watch it, and they'll always get brand deals as a result. But now that first wave is now kind of getting up there in age, they're cresting the hill. We're kind of seeing more in the space of following demonetization. That alone is such a barrier to entry that YouTube will never pay you the cash these people were fucking getting.
So just to stop you there, I want to stop you right there before you get into your 3 years bit. I want to ask you who you would consider like the first generation YouTubers.
So I have a small list here. I kind of just went within 5 years of Jenna Marbles. If her career started in 2010, following her 5 million view video, we're looking in the range of Smosh, if anyone remembers them.
Yep.
Not a fucking clue.
I remember the name.
They're a small comedy group. It was like 2 guys. It's now a channel survived by like them having 5 other actors, and they kind of have a hand in videos going up. But it's kind of like a college humor mill now of just like, here's a joke, something relatable, maybe a meme. Philip DeFranco, I'm not terribly familiar, I believe. Michelle?
Oh, it's fucking miserable.
I have a small anecdote about him, which was simply that was my first exposure to someone showing me a YouTuber going, hey, look at this guy's videos. And almost immediately I could see down the corridor to where we are now a decade later. And I just sort of had this whole idea in my head of, oh, this is what entertainment will be, isn't it? At the same time, I was just not getting it at all. I was like, oh, I don't understand why.
Apologies in advance for the misogyny, but imagine Ned Flanders, but more of a pussy.
I kind of, yeah. That's the vibe I get from the dude. And I was like, this guy just reads the news.
He's so repellent.
Yeah. Anyways, nothing against him.
Go on.
Just not something I would watch.
I mainly focused this DIY tuber talk around Jenna Marbles because she's kind of the poster child for what I would consider the best trajectory for this kind of situation, where it was just something she was kind of fucking around with. And although the satisfaction of it wore off, and now she is in what I would consider a pretty tidy retirement, there's still some recovery efforts she has to make personally. But compared to some other people that are just fucking trash bags, other first-generation YouTubers, just hard examples would be Trisha Paytas. Is anyone familiar with her works?
Nope.
So Trisha Paytas is a nice drama tuber. She was personally an escort and is now survived past demonetization on OnlyFans. She was also doing like a Patreon or whatever for a while. And famously has had sex with a lot of celebrities and talked about them here and there. Most notably would be maybe for money or maybe not, having sex with Michael J. Fox for a period of time and being physically abused by him. And Aaron Carter, the very kid that beat Shaq.
Holy shit.
But when he was a meth addict in like his 30s or whatever. As for
I'm gonna say just putting my bets in, like, meth Aaron Carter could beat Shaq. Child Aaron Carter could not beat Shaq.
The drugs do go a long way.
I'll take your dollars against meth Aaron Carter.
How much is he allowed to do drugs? Does he have to use court time? Is he not dribbling and doing drugs? Or does he?
I'm just saying, have any of you ever worked in a factory?
No.
If you've ever worked in a factory, do you know someone who's been on amphetamines? They're going to be lifting shit. They're going.
I mean, I've worked in a kitchen.
Were they lifting shit next?
Oh yeah,
that same deal. Yeah.
Yeah, they're going to be like,
you find people on amphetamines there. Yeah,
they're going to be sweating. They're going to be sweating. They're going to be working faster than you, and they're constantly going to be asking you, "Hey, don't you have something to do, man?" And like that's how it's going to be. So like, yeah. Amphetamines Aaron Carter is gonna fucking blow out Shaq, especially if it's older Shaq. he's gonna be doing front flips on his fucking head.
If it's current day Shaq, I could see it being something of a tussle.
I mean, yeah, that's true. And sometimes if you hit this shit too hard, you're gonna put on a lot of weight. But that's neither here nor there. As you were saying, Ruben.
I think I was trying to just wrap up the point on if you could recreate this success, and from my perspective, it'd be no fucking way can you, because we are just at the point where this is everyone's content of
Right.
I'm a fun vlogger, I'm a fun personality, I got my dogs, maybe here's my kid, and it's something that has been repeated and attempted millions of times. Like, you're not going to be in the 1% that break through for just no reason.
Feels very lightning in a bottle-y.
Mhm.
Oh, I forgot. Yeah.
I mean, you need that X factor, right? Like Jenna Marbles is, I didn't need to see any more of her content except for how to trick people into making yourself attractive. But that one video, I've never forgot it because it was so fucking funny. And some people just have that, they walk into the room, they get on stage, they get on a camera, and everyone wants to look at them and consume them. And most, 99.9% of people don't have it. And a lot of the people, probably an even smaller percentage of people who actually want to have some sort of a career where they get paid attention to professionally, very few of those people, even fewer, an even lower percentage are going to have that X factor. Because it's not the people who go outside and get attention and get compliments every day who need to be in front of, a camera. Like, my little brother's a really good example.
That's a very good point.
He's like 6'2", 6'3". He's beautiful. He's a professional model. He's had this amazing sort of small career, but unlike me, he doesn't have the same sort of, like, he did have a theater career, definitely, but he's not as much of an attention seeker as I am. And so as a result, like, he's almost not online at all. And every time he has some sort of a career crisis, I'm like, you could just start a fucking YouTube channel where you teach people how to sing opera. You would get millions of views within a couple years. I can coach you through this. It's not hard. And he's always like, he kind of demurs because he's just not really interested. And that's because every fucking time this kid goes outside, somebody invites him to be in a runway show,
I would say it's not 100% guarantee. A weird thing about YouTube, it's sort of the air quotes democratizing part of YouTube, is the X factor can happen in a variety of ways.
Mm-hmm.
Now, beyond being incredibly attractive, if you have like a certain sense of humor,
Mm-hmm.
or if you can tap into a sensibility that a lot of people feel very strongly about, beyond the culture war reactionary crap, if you are very familiar in a field in a certain way, like a lot of people that are in video games YouTube, or like people that are really bad at playing video games, like the Game Grumps guys or whatever, are not known for like their high level of play.
More for
but they're known, they're charismatic people that are very good at recreating feelings that people have in their own home and household, and people could point at that and be like, very relatable. I fucking suck at Sonic Adventure as well.
Yeah.
And like that's the whole thing. And cultivating a fan base, it can depend on like traditional avenues or ways in, but like it's one of those weird things where it's like it's very hard to ask someone what they look for in like a YouTuber versus, say, a traditional celebrity-ass celebrity. It's what's so mystifying about it to me. When I think of an entertaining person, right, I think of someone that can do something I can't do proficiently, and that's why I sit down and I commit time to it, because it's why and then you'll try to show someone, but yeah, and they've created like whole different forms of things, like Hot Ones. It's just an interview where people jam peppers into their mouths.
I mean, frankly, that's one of the ones that I would find even more traditional, right? It's at the end of the day, an interview format has been on television forever.
Right.
But there's like YouTube channels that are just a guy who has ant farms, and like it's called Ants Canada, and he's one of a bunch of different ants dudes. And you can just go to his channel if you want to see how all his ant farms are growing. And
or those eater guys
on TV before.
Yeah, mukbang.
Yeah, those. Yeah,
yeah.
Not just mukbang. Those guys that like eat shit that doesn't make sense. Like,
oh, you mean like Epic Mealtime?
No, I mean like cement. Like
what?
people are almost harming
People that are dying and
What are you talking? What?
eating drywall.
No. Those guys that eat
they're
like
drywall
glass
eating
and
YouTube.
shit.
That doesn't
Like,
surprise me.
Expand
I've
on
never
this.
heard of it before, but I mean,
Or-
we're talking about pica, which is the desire to eat non-food items, and sometimes it's a neurological problem, and sometimes it's actually linked to like nutritional deficiencies. Pregnant women get pica a lot. Actually, if you watch that horrible like TLC reality show, My Strange Addiction, about 80% of the people on there who have a so-called addiction have pica. So they're eating like charcoal and clay, drywall. I mean, paper. Those are all like really classic pica materials
Hold
to
up.
eat. What?
Would hair eating be
Yes.
considered pica?
That's actually
wow.
that's a very specific one. It's called Rapunzel syndrome. And Rapunzel syndrome sufferers get something called a bezoar. A bezoar is a huge ball of indigestible material that just collects in your stomach and it can't be passed through your intestines. So it just sits there. And sometimes it's harmless and it just kind of grows. But sometimes it'll get lodged in your gastrointestinal tract and you'll start to swell up and die. But yeah, if you Google Rapunzel syndrome, you'll get some really cool pictures of bezoars. Bezoars were, just a short jig to the side here, bezoars are actually considered in the medieval period to be highly lucky and powerful medicine. You find them in ungulates a lot, like cows and deer and horses and stuff, because they're always eating vegetation. So they'll get bezoars that are made of just like grass and stuff, and that's normal. But human hair bezoars are a whole different thing. So anyway, the pica thing, if you have pica and you're having weird urges to like eat paper or something, but you're not ready to like start eating charcoal out of your aquarium, going to YouTube and watching somebody else do it can be, highly appealing. And I could certainly see how like subclinical cases of pica could definitely transfer for a certain segment of the population onto just watching somebody else do it. To a certain extent, that could be a harm reduction approach. And I'm sure other people are just in it for the freakishness, which brings me to the next point I was going to make, which is that sometimes the X factor is that you're a huge piece of shit and people love watching you suffer. So you get people like Nikocado Avocado. You ever hear of this guy who's like a vegan mukbang guy who just I recently watched a nearly 5-hour video about what a piece of shit this guy is. And the video is actually horrible and really badly edited. But the takeaway was that this guy is not attractive. He's not funny. He's not charming in any capacity. He has no specialized information to share. His life is just a huge shit show and he's a horrible person. So he got a pretty serious audience of people tuning in to either fuck with him, to see him, melt down, or just to see what stupid shit he was going to do next and watch him suffer the reasonable consequences thereof. So I think that a lot of people who, particularly have massive meltdowns have the X factor, but the X factor is that people really want to watch them suffer.
It's great that you mentioned that, Eliza. Me and Jake have had this ritual lately where there's an American adaptation of an Australian program called Review.
Yes.
Basically, Andy Daly is a comedian where he basically reviews life experiences instead of like media or this or that.
That's right.
And so he does it firsthand, very gonzo.
If you've ever wanted to review, for instance, getting addicted to cocaine,
or
he will do it for you.
Or getting a divorce and then it destroying his life.
Yeah.
Like that seems like a sort of healthy outlet because it's like black comedy.
Whereas it's also scripted television. It's also
scripted television, but the YouTuber impulse is like no, I did not fuck my cat.
We very much get these situations in real life when it comes to YouTube.
Right.
Yeah, that's the strange thing. It would be if like incongruity existing with YouTube And like that sort of shit being funny to me would make more sense if YouTube wasn't almost entirely structured by that when it comes to like I want to say subcultures engaging with it beyond like the main page and trending and stuff.
Well, yeah, it's got a ton of them, right? There's every subculture has a YouTube. There's people who only talk about magic cards on YouTube. There's pimple popping YouTube. There's fighting game YouTube. And then obviously there's the stuff that's like that is more traditional, people talking into a camera YouTube.
Yeah.
Everything.
It's all beyond my ability to fucking reckon with. So for the most part, like every social media thing that people complain about and fucking hate, of course I engage with it, but like I try to do it in a specific way. I'm just like, if I only watch things about maybe video games, or if a podcast I enjoy has a channel, click on that, bing bong. But if I ever fucking deviate, if I watch a news item or something, or like I listened to Joji recently because I was like, oh, that's the Filthy Frank guy.
Oh, sure, yeah. So this is someone.
Good fucking God.
That's a pop star now who started as a YouTube guy, right? That's all I know.
Ruben, how much do you know about Joji / Filthy Frank?
Oh, I'm not.
That is an interesting case because that's another guy who starts on YouTube and then goes on to be essentially doesn't need to use YouTube anymore. But that's because he pivoted to music, so that is different.
Yeah, basically, just imagine more excessive than South Park level of racism and homophobia, but to such an extent that it, it's very hard to take it on its face as things this guy actually believes because it's so pronounced. But Shan Strucci was talking about in a video where the just kill yourself because you're gay or whatever video basically like fucking is always used sort of in the pejorative by a certain set of people that it kind of normalizes a message.
Is this
kind of easy to see.
The guy made?
It's incorporated into a video. His big thing was known for like doing songs and also doing really weird outdoor sort of abrasive jackass style skits.
Yeah.
Like a lot of these guys grew up with Borat and like, does anyone here remember Tom Green?
Oh yeah.
Of course.
Like Tom Green did a lot of the shit that these people were doing. And was bankrolled like by Viacom via MTV to do this shit in a way that a lot of these people couldn't even dream of having had happened.
Does he still have it was a radio show, right? Internet radio show?
It was an internet TV show that was kind of a little bit of
the one that 4chan
radio show.
Yeah,
the one that
4chan
rated it.
Oh, hard. That's like high school memories for me.
He lost his. It was a very successful raid. It was one of 4chan's triumphs. Yeah.
Yeah, like he moved to that after a short-lived late night style show. I remember the last episode I ever saw of it, reasonably so, was when the bum fights guy came on to Late Night with Tom Green. And like Tom Green was like, no, actually, I fucking hate this. And I need to have a talk with my producer about this because these aren't the people I want to associate with.
I mean, good for Tom Green.
Well, no, because they were showing footage of it where this guy was like pouring like cleaning agent on a homeless man.
Yeah.
Where he's just aghast. And this is a guy that, covers himself in shit and dead animals. But he's just, if anyone is messed with in a Tom Green thing, like Connor O'Malley, the guy who's getting hit with this.
Let it never be said that he doesn't know where the line is.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like YouTubers kind of like to imagine themselves cut from that cloth, but like I don't think they've ever gotten to that point, with the exception of like a very specific group of alt-right people.
Right. I was about to say we had alt-right YouTubers con their way into getting an Adult Swim show. So
well, I mean, I don't know if I'd say con. I think it was like a lack of vetting, and that's a whole different conversation.
I guess a lack of vetting would be more appropriate, but I can more
That's not
specifically
apologetic
say
for
that
him.
the only reason that show ever got existed was just white man being stubborn.
Because like most of the stuff, God, I think one guy that worked with him, didn't he get into it like
the director
Boogie or whatever?
So we're talking about $1 Million Extreme, which was basically an alt-right comedy group that started on YouTube as a cat named Sam Hyde who just deserves to get stabbed. But
gonna cut that.
Don't worry about it.
No, he was talking about Minecraft. In Minecraft.
Stabbing. All right, Minecraft in the game parody.
He should be Minecrafted.
So they essentially pitched and got to shoot a pilot from Adult Swim, and the guy who worked on the pilot is a friend of a friend, the director, and hated all of them, and did not work with them again for the series at all. And from the get-go, it was something that I don't think many people enjoyed. I think it was approved in order for Adult Swim to have some type of I guess they wanted a show where they could go, look, we're not just libs, which doesn't make sense, but that's what happens when your company's still at the end of the day run by old white dudes.
Mm-hmm.
And so they made like 6 episodes of this genuinely awful, like racist, misogynistic, bad sketch show. And then it turned on them essentially. So people hated it. It got pointed out that it existed because it really wasn't advertised. I
think the big gotcha was
they got a giant wave of negative press, and then they canceled the show, which then got them a giant wave of alt-right hate to the point where like extra security had to be hired to be outside the offices of Adult Swim and stuff like that. So it was just a bad thing all around. But the genesis of it is still YouTube sketches. It's still YouTube dudes.
Like I remember the big gotcha was basically that they were trying to like link this, and like people made a very easy post to make, which was just Sam Hyde and like fucking weave with the big swastika.
Oh yeah,
the Anashkazi guy with a fucking swastika on his shoulder, American History X style. Like, I hate to be a guilt by association person, but something seems fucked up here. I can't put my finger on it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. They're still trying to penetrate it. That kind of subculture sort of headspace, like Truth Point with like Drill and Derek Davis. And
you could see that as a sort of opposite end of that, I guess.
They're trying to do it in the other direction. That's also
not on TV. That's literally just a streaming show.
That's just a streaming show, and the views are basically no, it's like 20,000. I mean, don't get me wrong. That's 20,000
compared to a lot of the other Adult Swim streaming stuff. That's not bad.
Yeah, that's not bad, honestly, comparatively. But they're still trying to find a way to make different modes of shit fit into what YouTube is and what streaming is. And I don't think there's any one clear path now. Like the traditional models are out the window. Honestly, I think the next big thing will be VR. Like beyond Twitch or whatever.
What? That's interesting.
You know how VR chat
specifically with YouTube, or do you use
VR chat and the like?
If you're telling me I could be in the audience physically with a VTuber, and then like you play paintball or something, I don't know, between them doing segments, that could actually be pretty fucking raw right there.
That's definitely. Again, the VR thing is a hardware issue, but like we'll get there.
They don't have the audience yet, but I mean, if there's a world in 10 years, it's a word that'll have VR.
$100 VR headsets.
I literally only say that because when it comes to DIY as it relates to celebrity and now, and as someone that consistently still plays Fortnite like a psychopath, it feels like the future is straight up going towards the way of Ready Player One trailer park favelas. Like, so I feel like our idea of celebrity and creators in that specific space the upward arc will move towards that and incorporating that, and it's just gonna be all set up buffet style, and this in this humble creative's opinion, I feel like the race to the bottom, hopefully, will incorporate more comfort and ease, but will sort of have different textures and contours than the parasocial relationships we have now. It'll feel more like a fucking game show. Just like in a lot of the ways that a lot of games incorporate what you guys were talking about earlier, like Twitch sort of taking over the traditional YouTuber.
Yeah, I mean, what I was going to try to, you mentioned all this Ready Player One stuff in the future, but I think what's kind of interesting to talk about is how that's we can sort of, well, you're able to kind of go off that conjecture from what we have now, which is both happening on YouTube and Twitch as VTubers, which is kind of something that previously we could conceive of, but the tech wasn't good enough, I guess. Where now we have full-on custom anime girls that are just playing video games with you.
That's what I'm saying. What I'm trying to tell you, Jake, is we have the dog furry girls doing Eekum Bokum.
Yeah.
We have that shit. We have Japanese VTube girls constantly saying the N-word from GTA 5. We are going to have in the next 5 or so years a controversy where a dude is Knuckles the Echidna, and he is constantly grooming several Tails the Foxes, Tails Miles Prowers. I don't fucking like it. It brings me no pleasure to think about this shit, but I don't see this future where a lot of us are left to our own devices and we constantly want to recreate the feeling of another person in the room, being our friend distantly, having outcomes where we don't then move towards wanting more sort of faux actualization. Like, if that makes sense.
Well, you don't want the mortifying ordeal of being known. I mean, that's the whole point, is that you've got your Twitch friends and your YouTube friends, and they don't fucking know you. So you do not have to show up at all. So every time we talk about YouTubers and Twitch streaming and personalities like that, I am vividly reminded of this one particular scene in Fahrenheit 451, which everyone has read, but I swear to God, no one remembers this scene. The protagonist comes home from his job and walks in on, I guess it's his wife or maybe his mom, I can't remember. And she is in the living room, which has 3 walls, which are just large projection screens. And on these screens are a panel of just people who are chatting amongst themselves in exactly the same way as we have YouTubers doing today, or like you would watch the television show The View or something like that, which is YouTube for boomer Karens. So it's just a very brief scene of this woman who is alone in her house putting something on television that simulates having people in her house in a social capacity. And this is so prescient and nobody knew at the time. But I read this book when I was probably 13, which, I'm a pretty old millennial. So this stuff when I was that age was like just around the corner. We were kind of just starting to see, because like Jenny Cam and stuff like that popped up a few years later, and I was like, aha, here it is. Here is the living room full of fake people. And then of course there's the Pictures for Sad Children comic strip about you've got a VHS tape of an Asian woman frying an egg and asking you about your day. So we have created that in real life. And the other movie that's like literally completely about this stuff is Strange Days, the Catherine Bigelow movie from, God, that came out in like 95 or something. It's just unbelievably old for how good it is. Everybody needs to watch Strange Days. And I will give a a huge
Yeah.
warning for that because it's like the
Ray
primary
Fiennes,
plot.
Angela Bassett.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Directed by Catherine Bigelow, written by
Bigelow.
James Cameron.
It is one of the greatest cyberpunk films ever made, if not the greatest. It should be topping lists above The Matrix. No,
Nice.
I like no shit. But it's so old, and it came out like in the mid 90s that it was just it knew way too much. So it never got the attention that it deserved, because if you watch it, 30 years later or whatever, you're like, holy fucking shit, how is this movie so old? How did she know? And she just fucking knew. But yeah, content warning for that is like the primary plot line is about a dude going around making POV snuff rape porn, which is then circulated on the black market. And I will say this, like a minor spoiler alert, I guess, but not really. Catherine Bigelow is probably one of the only directors I would trust with this kind of material. And she shows, the main male protagonist, detective. It's a noir. It's like a cyber noir, watching this video, and the way that he manages to act through the experience of the VR set, which is not just a visual thing in the movie. It's like a head jack. It's a total body experience kind of thing. And this intense, crippling ambivalence of this is porn, but it's also giving me brain damage because I'm watching and I am killing somebody, during a sex crime. And, it's like she really, despite it being extremely explicit, it is in no way punishing the audience or a celebration or exploitative of the subject matter. And it's such a good example of the form of, like, if you want to use rape in your narrative, this is how to do it effectively to really like make an impression on the audience, but also not to make it into pornography itself,
Because it compromises the character, or at least his ability to kind of reckon with his job. And then like there's like a voyeuristic part of it too.
Right.
In order to figure this out, you've got to dive in and you've got to compromise yourself a little bit.
Yeah.
And you've got to inflict a little damage on yourself.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great ideas at play in that movie. I think having
not seen it, this movie looks awesome.
You're gonna love it.
That's the thing.
Looking fast right now.
I think now when we kind of, trying to diagnose anything is always wild. If I had to take a stab at it, I think without just simply saying the word alienation by itself, because I feel people are getting fucking lazy with it now.
Mm-hmm.
The idea of romance and traditional love feel as though they're eroding in many ways. A lot of social bonds are breaking down completely.
Mm-hmm.
We have fucking bad boundaries with one another because of how often we engage one another, and even simple manners and shit.
Mm-hmm.
And then you add societal factors like political atomization and all of this, and the digital spaces it relates to that in creating things is how much of it is actually coming from you in your own motivations for creating something versus you trying to fit into that box. And then you don't even know you're becoming some sort of romantic, distant, voyeuristic love object to someone else. You're becoming white noise in the room.
Right.
You're the hand that they want to grab but can't. And it would feel worse if they could. Or they want an approximation of that nourishes them. And it's strange thinking about that as it relates to creation now. I think where you get more engagement, because all of these things, social media, YouTube, the hits, specifically giving anyone analytics for their engagement should be like a fucking crime punishable by law, because going to follow those trends.
It changes.
You're going to unwind yourself. You're going to be looking for venues for that engagement loop.
Mm-hmm.
You fucking like they should study a lot of the people that just do just fully go into the analytics, because that serotonin loop.
Yeah.
All of that happiness.
Watching bars go up.
Watching the number go up.
It will make it literally insane. And I've had to go out of my way to avoid that kind of feedback loop. And fucking Patreon, every time I go to Patreon, on the very front page, it will tell me how many people have unsubscribed that month. And it's like, I don't want to know. Don't show me that shit. And, you know, you have to like go. I have 20,000 Twitter followers now, and I've been doing, you know, my career online for like 20 years now. So I have learned through putting my hand on the stove many times that you don't name search. You do not, you explicitly tell people, if you see someone talking shit about me, do not show me. I don't care.
Exactly. I think the only time I've ever done that is like, okay, safety, but that's it. Like if someone's going to try to cut off my fucking head, tell me.
Right.
Cool. But I don't want to argue with some fucking Jagov with like 10 followers. But I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, that's exactly what I'm trying to say. And I think a lot of people don't, they want to do, it's self-harm. You know, they want to pull their hair out, you want to pull your eyelashes out, you want to cut your arm up, but instead you're name searching and you're listening to what the other YouTubers are saying about you in their stupid mukbang video about how, you know, you feed your dog a vegan diet, which I think is horrible, but that's just like an example, you know. And so that's Nikocado's downfall, is that he just got obsessed with other YouTubers talking shit about him in his videos, and it just created this massive feedback loop. And of course, we're all like in the ape house on the other side of the glass, hooting and hollering because it's incredibly entertaining, and we don't actually care about any of these people. So it's like watching WWE, you know. But the difference being that these are real people who have real lives that are really falling apart, which is something that a lot of internet audiences don't get. People will write fan fiction about podcasters getting into like sexual relationships with other podcasters and think it's fine. You know? This has been going on forever.
Oh, definitely. The kind of fan mentality of content consumption, I suppose.
Yeah, they don't think these real people are real. It's fucked.
And that's, I mean, I don't think it's necessarily all bad, but if you put a gun to my head, what am I going to think of when I think of a lot of this? And first, it's going to be, I think the most followers I ever had in the Twitter days was like 5,000. And it's a lot of people hanging on your words. And if you just want to do like I do and like be an idiot and like post nudes or say stupid jokes a lot or post a lot of not necessarily bad, but visually off-putting things to some people. like things I wouldn't consider morally bad, but it's like, that's a horny that I know people are going to be like, and that is what it is. But like, you will have a bunch of legitimate criticism or this or that, and you can't control any of it. And I try to set up boundaries with some people, and a lot of people didn't respect them. And for me, watching it extrapolated over people, I couldn't imagine what it'd be like to be someone engaging millions of people and how that would fuck with your brain.
Sure. The higher level.
Especially with so many of them that seem to have like very few in-person people in their personal lives. So yeah.
Well, what's her name just posted a picture of herself having a miscarriage to Twitter.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
I don't remember. Yeah, Chrissy T. I still don't know who she is or what she does, and I'm tired of hearing about her. But
She was a model that at some point or another married John Legend,
now she's
and
John Legend's wife, and famous.
now she's like a snarky online liberal, basically, in so many words.
Like, my heart fucking goes out to her, right? But are you kidding me? It took me.
Yeah, who needed to know that?
I posted from the hospital, but first, I did not have a miscarriage. That's a whole other thing. And second, I did not post like the day that I arrived. You know, I did not go on fucking Twitter when I woke up in the ICU. That was not my first impulse. And then when a bunch of people posted like, really from the hospital, Chrissy, and then a bunch of other, you know, scolds showed up in the mentions of those people and was like, well, my girlfriend had a miscarriage, and if I didn't take a picture, I literally saw the following comment.
Wow.
If I hadn't taken a picture that day and shared it on social media, I would have forgotten about it. And it's just like,
you sure about that?
Have you moved your goalposts so much?
Yeah.
Here's the fuck thing about that. It was a black and white photo.
Yep.
So what's fucked about that is that went through an editorial layer.
Oh,
it wasn't just the person that took it in the moment.
No, she has a team. She has a team that helps with that photo.
Fucked. That's fucked.
And it wasn't a selfie. So a third person took that picture, handed her the phone for approval after editing, and she uploaded it. Like,
I think if there's a negative part of that end of the social experience as it relates to it, it's that you sort of commodify human experience and human pain as like sort of fandom like markers, which is sickening because as you spoke about fan fiction, as soon as I saw the black and white photo, I immediately thought in the back of my head, probably the most intrusive fucking thought ever, which is like, someone's going to do fan fiction about that baby surviving. They're going to have names. That baby is going to have a whole life.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God, you're not wrong.
Romantic fixations, problems, all their own, a life at school. How's this baby coping with COVID? And, you know, in that moment, I wanted to fucking melt. And so now I want to take us away from the darkness because, baby, we've been swimming in it. And I want to ask all three of you as sort of a final note. I'm gonna start with Ruben first. What is your platonic idea of like your favorite kind of YouTuber? What would you love to see from a YouTuber where you wouldn't feel like you were going to the hell place of the mind? You weren't in brain prison. Starting with Ruben.
First of all, don't start with me. B.
B?
The ideal tubescape. So you're gonna have to clarify.
Freestyle it. What do you like?
Yeah, freestyle it. What would be a good thing to like that wouldn't suck ass?
Oh man, I saw a dude like just chiseling for like 2 hours into a stone. It was pretty fucking sweet.
There's a Twitch streamer that's gotten famous for doing wood carving lately.
If it's not just manual tasks and just making a good product that also is a good product, because when someone fucking uses a lathe and they're like, I put plastic straws in resin and then turned it into a vase, I want to fucking kill you. It looks so ugly. Why'd you spend 10 hours doing that? But it all just circles back to Jenna Marbles, baby. If it's not just
Jenna Marbles with a fucking lathe.
If it's not something useful, it should just be someone that's incredibly genuine, isn't a shitty person secretly, and is just a fun personality on YouTube. It really just seems like, hey, just fucking like my dogs, check my fucking dogs out, make a fun music video. Of note, of Jenna Marbles more like conducted works that weren't in the vlog sphere, like the last half of what she did. She made a really good music video called 3 Looks. I advise everyone go check that out when you have time for it. But it's really just genuine people, or the next thing closest to sincerity is someone making something useful. Otherwise, it's all just a fucking waste of time and not very interesting.
All right. So Ruben in summation, Jenna Marbles with the lathe, and the dog's out. Jake, how about you?
I'll bring it back to Nerd Town here. So I think YouTube is neat because it can be a home for content that would literally otherwise not exist. And we know a lot of that can be mediocre stuff. But for me, I like that in the form of sort of improvement for competitive endeavors. So it's not like I can turn on my TV and learn how to play some old fighting game from 2002. But on YouTube, I can find plenty of videos that show me all of the systems and breakdowns of those types of games that I like to learn. So essentially, I just use YouTube for that kind of stuff. A lot of the channels I follow are fighting game related or competitive game related, with the focus of, hey, I got to consume this content somehow because that's how I'm going to learn, and this is where it ends up. You used to have to go to like GameFAQs.com and download some janky MP4 video or something, but this is where the tech is at.
All right, so you're into utility. I can appreciate that.
I just like the content on YouTube that happens to be on YouTube that is focused on what I'm looking for, which is usually nerdy video game stuff, either tournament archives or videos specifically about like how to do something in a video game.
All right. And Eliza, yourself?
I'm trying to think. I have a deep antipathy towards YouTube, like generally. So all of the YouTube content that I actually enjoy, not all of it, but 99% of it, is stuff that someone has archived off of a VHS from like 1986. And YouTube is just invaluable for that because that stuff vanishes. Like it will rot away on VHS tape or celluloid in somebody's closet unless somebody saves it. Like there's episodes of Doctor Who that we just don't have because they were broadcast live. No one ever recorded them and they're just gone now. And nobody had a VHS set up at the time. So there's like lost episodes of a show that hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people were watching at the time, and it's just gone. So that shit, it just scares the shit out of me. I think that archiving is so important, and it's just something I've fought my entire career, because even something like the Grover House thread, it's like the possibly the most popular and wide-reaching thing I've ever done on Twitter is now literally unreadable because 2 years or 3 years after it came out, Twitter just decided to change the way that their threading works. So now it's unreadable. I'm going to have to archive it in a different form and re-upload it. So, I want to, and I have a video server, which is kept up by some friends of mine. But I originally started it on SyncTube, which a bunch of people just go and watch YouTube together. And the URL is video.genderreject.net. But the main channel is just called Documentary Chat, aka We Love to Learn. And We Love to Learn is almost entirely instructional and documentary videos. So
me and Ruben have done some watches of that. It's great stuff.
Me too.
It's a good place.
It's a good time.
So a lot of that stuff is like one of the most popular videos in that channel is an official instructional video, probably from the 90s, from I think Winnipeg, about how to make Olympic quality curling ice on an ice rink. And it's just a VHS tape that your boss would have shown you when you showed up to work for orientation. And it's just a bunch of guys named fucking Keith with backpacks full of water, putting spray after spray down of very fine water vapor down onto ice to make this perfectly smooth curling ice surface. And they talk about, you want pebbling for some parts of the ice for a little bit more friction. You want, super smooth, like mirror ice, and for other parts. And they go through all of how to lay down the stripes and how to use your lane painter for that, how to measure stuff. What?
Question. So is it like a bowling lane at all where they design alleys for curling, or is it just a preferred area of like mirror center and then pebbled sides?
I don't know exactly because I don't know that much about curling. But it is a regular ice rink, I think, just that would normally be used for hockey or just for ice skating. And then they put a special texturized finish on it specifically for curling. So I think
Yeah.
that the pebbling goes in some areas and the super smooth ice goes in different areas. And they have to like embed team logos and stuff in the ice underneath the layers. So it's kind of like it's like window glazing in a sense, or laying down resin, or anything that deals with transparent layering. So we fucking love this video. Everyone just goes ape shit every time it comes on because it's endlessly rewatchable. It has absolutely no relevance to anybody in the channel's actual life, but there's something about it, and we never ever would have seen it otherwise. Which is, going back to what Jake was saying about how this stuff wouldn't exist. It would just be gone. So that's my favorite use of YouTube, and it's not to make new material.
It's like it's a kind
that's
skill set you'd really wish to interact with in real life. I would really die to be on a fucking curling team, just like in a volunteer capacity, just to build the ring.
Curling is sick. It's very sick.
I have a miniature curling iron. It has a marble bearing in it, and you can slide it. I have a couple of these from a little gotcha machine.
Yeah. So for Eliza, an archivist project that almost never ends in a bandwidth situation that is very ephemeral. No one knows how the fuck that will be resolved with YouTube.
Oh, if you want to,
and Keith, big ups to Keith, who's always keeping that ice real smooth, real pebbly.
Oh yeah.
A nice hell of archival is part of my job, which works in private archiving for family use typically, is someone was actually trying to get us to recreate a copyright video because it's like one VHS tape on a specific knitting technique
Nice.
to create certain... they didn't explain it. I should have pulled the video and seen it. But they were like, there's no other fucking way. There aren't any trainers or anyone else I know. Like, I was the only person on my block doing this. And I shot this video in the 70s of how to make these fucking things. And I need to archive this so I can watch it again and A, make them again, and B, or fucking no one's going to remember how to do this.
Yeah.
And
that knowledge vanishes.
I live in a personal hell of watching people just throw away thousands of hours of footage because they don't want to spend like a couple $100 and just like, you know what? My family's history isn't worth $500. And when I fuck this up and these are going to get wet in the basement and be gone forever in a couple months, it's terrifying. It's unpleasant at the least.
Yeah.
Terrifying at a little more.
For me, my ideal sort of YouTube would be like, I don't know, people that are actually funny on YouTube.
Sure.
Not to be an elitist, but I really don't like the YouTube point of origin sense of humor. Like the Smosh style shit or whatever, where it's like a bunch of
just bad sketches.
A lot of very similar Bieber-esque haircuts, a lot of polo shirts, or this very specific sort of I don't know how to say it, beyond say your Ralph Lauren or whatever, just very polo, very very khaki style humor. Like I really enjoy sketch comedy and traditional stage stand-up comedy, and anytime I go onto a streaming site, a lot of the comic specials kind of run into the same jokes. And I knew this was a thing that was happening when there were like 7 or so above ground swimming pool fucking jokes, to the point where Dave Chappelle was making above ground swimming pool jokes. Like, do they all know the same fucking guy with an above ground pool?
Is there a good above ground pool joke? What's the joke?
No, it's because we want a real pool, which is a pool that is below ground.
Yes.
With like the stone and shit. Like
the joke was just complaining that it wasn't a real pool. It's a pool.
It's like a poor person's cool pool. It's like, man, fuck off. I would swim in an above ground pool if it was near me. I wouldn't now because it's obviously very cold. But that's it. Like, I would actually like funny people to be on YouTube, and there's a massive deficit in that.
Yeah,
I think a lot of people
you definitely have your
try to just do Vine transfers that have a point of origin somewhere else. Like Eliza's TikToks thread is amazing. So many good vids.
Yeah, a lot of
but
which are now deleted. You know, if I hadn't fucking downloaded them, they'd just be gone.
Which is the exception, not the rule.
Mhm.
So I want like more funny shit as opposed to just flotsam and jetsam.
I want to talk about Vine
and
transfers.
dog shit.
Connor O'Malley is the only guy that comes to mind these days, but there
Yeah.
are people in the past that Donald Glover started on YouTube basically.
That's true.
So, but again, he is more of an exception.
Well, with that in mind, folks, we went through a lot of things. We discovered a lot about ourselves, about life, about God, about the sun god Ra, and all in all, YouTube. Don't go on it if you don't have to.
Yeah,
Avoid
don't
it.
go to that
And-
website.
Yeah.
Don't go to that website. But if you have to make something on that website, for fuck's sake, please make something fun or enjoyable, or archive old footage of old commercials that probably haven't aged that well and look artifacted as fuck.
Mm-hmm.
Or try to learn a discipline like curling.
Yes.
Or just try to make the next FGC Yipes video.
Yeah.
On that
Start
note,
fighting games.
I'm Michelle Perez, speaking for Ruben, Jake, and Eliza Gager. You've been listening to we'll be distributing this on many known platforms. We hope you enjoyed it, and we're going to try to put out as much as we can for you. You have a great rest of your day. It was great talking with all of my co-hosts here.
Thanks.
And
Michelle.
take care of yourself, y'all.
Later, Gators.